In the Seder Hamayadim, in the order of the Yomim Tovim, there is a discussion as to the relationship between different Yomim Tovim. In the Seder of Atbash, Aleph Tov Beis Shin, Aleph refers to the first day of Pesach, and the Tov refers to Tisha B'Av, teaching us that there's a relationship between the holiday of Pesach and in the commemoration of Tisha B'Av, where they fall out on the same day of the week, meaning on this year's calendar, since Tuesday is the first day of Pesach, the same day on the day of the week, Tuesday will be Tisha B'Av. The question is, why is there a relationship between the two? In this week's Parsha starts with Vayikra Moshe, and we know that the Aleph in Vayikra is an Aleph Ze'ira. It's an Aleph that's smaller. Question is, why is there a smaller Aleph? Rashi explains, because Moshe Rabbeinu had the midah of anivus. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu called out to him Kra, Kuf, Reish, Aleph, in a set way, in a lashon of Chavivus, and he called out to the Nevi'ei Akum, the Nevi'im of the Umas HaOlam, like Bilam, Vayikar el Bilam, that they only happened to call out to them, and there was no Seder, and there was no Chavivus to the calling. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want it to stick out that he was a Navi that was called with Chavivus by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore he minimized the Aleph to make it look like Vayikar, even though Hashem called out to him with Chavivus. That was the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu of Anivus. And the truth is, in the holiday of Pesach, we are told also that we have to be in the Geder of Anivus. We have to be humble, because Chametz represents the Sa'ar Shebe'isa, the Gaiva, the expansion of the self. And we are supposed to minimize the self with an Anivus. Why is that important around the holiday of Pesach? Because the whole reason why we went down to Mitzrayim was because of the Aveira of Sinas Chinam. In fact, Rav Saadia Goyen points out that Karpas, which we normally assume is because we're trying to get the Tinaikas to ask questions, is really representative of the Kseinis Pasim, which Rashi himself translates as Karpas, that the Kseinis Pasim was dipped into the blood. That Sinas Chinam led us down to Mitzrayim, and that's why we were unfortunately punished with the Shibud, with the slavery in Mitzrayim. Also, in fact, the kapara for the Sinas Chinam was the Korban Pesach, which it says in the Pasuk that we had to gather together, Aguda Achas, we had to gather together an Aguda of grass, and Utvaltem Badom Asher Basaf, and you dipped it into the blood of the Korban Pesach as a symbol that we fixed the Aveira of Sinas Chinam in Mitzrayim. In fact, also one of the other simanim of the Seder is that when we begin, we say, Kol dichvin yesav yechal. We want everyone to come together right before the Seder in order to make it an achdus, a togetherness, to be misakein that chet of Sinas Chinam. And Gaiva, someone who is haughty, who expands himself, doesn't have room for others, he is doing the opposite of what the theme of Pesach is, which is why symbolically we get rid of the Sa'ar Shebe'isa, the Chametz, before we come into Pesach, so that when it comes for Pesach, we have room for every Jew at our table. And that is how we are Mesake in the Chet of the Kseinis Pasim. As a result, you see the theme is protecting us, really introducing to us this week's Parsha, Vayikra Moshe, the Aleph Ze'ira, that we should minimize ourselves. Unfortunately, if we don't fix that Aveira of Sinas Chinam before we prepare for Pesach, what happens is, 3 months later, on that very same day, in the Atbash schedule, we commemorate a Tisha B'Av, which the Gemara tells us that Sinas Chinam is the reason why this Beis HaMikdash and this Galus exists. It's the reason why the original Galus Mitzrayim existed. And unfortunately, we can't be misaking it. We can't come back to it without fixing that Aveira. The Gemara says, which Churban Habayis was worse, the first or the second? And the Gemara says, you see that the first Beis HaMikdash was rebuilt. The second one has yet to be rebuilt, which teaches us that the Aveira of Sinas Chinam was even worse than the Gili Arayas, Shrichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah, which led to the Churban of the first Beis HaMikdash. Kadosh Baruch Hu is starting that reminder in the parasha this week, Vayikra el Moshe, Aleph Ze'ira. Let us begin that process properly in this week's parasha, so that when we get to eradicating the Sa'ar Shebe'itza and Chametz in the next week and a half afterwards to prepare for Pesach, Mitzvah Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will eliminate the need for the Atbash, and really the Aleph of Pesach will correspond to the Taf of Tisha B'Av, which will be a Moyed, a Yom Tif. In our times, as Mitzvah Hashem, we will experience the rebuilding of the Bayis Shlishi B'Mheira V'Yameinu. Amen.